The Chiefs were in pads for the first time at training camp, and we just got a sneak preview of the starting offensive line week 1. But if you guys are new to this channel, my name is Michael Darcy, and you're watching the KC Sports Report. Do me a big time favor and hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more daily Chiefs coverage. I first want to start by giving an injury update. Jawaan Taylor got activated off the PUP list and got a ton of reps at right tackle. And that's not really a huge surprise. We knew that Jawaan Taylor didn't have any major leg injury, and so I was not surprised to see him get activated for the first day of real football. When the pads come on, things get real. And so I'm not surprised whatsoever that we get a glimpse of potentially our starting offensive line, our starting five for the first day of pads. And why don't I just go ahead and read off the starting five? We had Josh Simmons, who's been absolutely stunning at left tackle as a rookie so far in training camp. You had Kingsley Suamataia at left guard, obviously Creed Humphrey at center, and Trey Smith at right guard. And then you had Jawaan Taylor starting on the right side, but Jalen Moore also got some rotational snaps. And I think that's actually a very good thing, because if Jawaan Taylor struggles at any point during the season, let's say that he continues to get called for false starts. I think he was actually the most penalized right tackle in football last year. And so if that continues, the Chiefs might pull the plug. The Chiefs might go ahead and say, you know what? We're paying Jalen Moore $15 million this season. Let's see what he can do at right tackle. And I would not hate that whatsoever. And I think that's why we saw Jalen Moore get so many snaps at right tackle when Taylor was on the PUP list. Because I think in an ideal world, your starting five is probably Simmons, Suamataia, Humphrey, Smith, and then Moore. And we're going to talk about Josh Simmons in this video, because I think he might be one of the biggest storylines in NFL, offseason right now. But I do want to talk more about the offensive line, because right now I think the Chiefs are actually in a very good spot. You saw so far in camp that Moore was getting a lot of snaps at right tackle. They add Jawaan Taylor back into the mix, and I think those guys are going to continue to rotate in camp. But I still think that's going to be Jawaan Taylor's job. I think the Chiefs are paying him too much money. It just doesn't make sense for them to bench him right away. But I think you can also admit that Jawaan Taylor has not been a very good right tackle in the league. Like, he hasn't been one of the worst, but he's definitely not top 10, and he's probably not top 15. He's fringe 15, maybe top 20, but I think overall, he's definitely not worth all the money the Chiefs are paying him, and that's why after this season, the Chiefs are going to cut him. And so if the Chiefs are going to cut Taylor this next offseason, maybe it's not such a bad thing to have Moore getting more snaps in training camp and potentially taking over if he ends up being the better player. But with that being said, let's start talking about the phenom Josh Simmons, because he has been one of the most impressive players, so far this offseason, not only for the Chiefs, but in the NFL. If I could go back in time and tell NFL GMs that Josh Simmons, who tore his patellar tendon, an injury that over 45% of linemen never end up playing football again, if I could tell you that a guy that tore his patellar tendon would be able to play football, I guess he missed most of last season, but was going to be available for training camp, there is no way in hell that he would be there at the final pick in the first round. There's no way, because so far, the tape that we've seen at camp, he went up against Charles Omenihu in the one-on-ones, and I'm not going to take a ton of stock in training camp one-on-ones, but he held his own. He looked good, and that is something that, if you pair that with how the coaching staff has talked about Simmons, this has all of the makings of being a franchise left tackle. Josh Simmons could be the future at that position, and if the Chiefs found that guy with the final pick in the first round, this is the type of pick that can continue a dynasty. This is the type of pick that can change the future for the Chiefs. And I don't want to make it sound like, if the Chiefs end up whiffing on Simmons, that things just completely fall apart. But if you hit on Simmons, if he ends up being the cornerstone left tackle that you think that he can be, that changes things. That makes it so the Chiefs have a solid foundation for Patrick Mahomes for the next decade. For the rest of his career, he could have potentially one more left tackle. Simmons could be that guy. And if you want to go back and look at the 3 Super Bowls that Patrick Mahomes has won, he's had a different left tackle in all of them. In fact, he's had a different left tackle in every single Super Bowl that he has played in. I mean, you can go down the list. He had, guys like Orlando Brown Jr. He had Joe Thuney, obviously, last year. Mike Remmer started at left tackle in that Super Bowl they lost to the Bucs. You had guys like, Eric Fisher. The list goes on and on. Donovan Smith. If Josh Simmons ends up being the truth, and so far in camp, he has looked phenomenal. He's looked really good in the very limited sample size that we've seen. And keep in mind, this was the first day of pads, so things could change very quickly. But if you pair the way that he's looked so far in camp with how the coaching staff has talked so highly of this kid, it's got to make you feel incredibly optimistic. And there's a very good likelihood that if Simmons never tore his patellar tendon, he's a top 5 pick. And he's easily, not even a debate, the best tackle in the draft. And the Chiefs got that guy at pick 32. Like, this is the kind of move that, if it ends up working out, can absolutely change the course of the Chiefs season. If the Chiefs had Josh Simmons last year, they'd probably win the Super Bowl. But if the Chiefs get a healthy and consistent player on that left side, I don't think you guys understand what it's not only going to do for Patrick Mahomes, but for this entire offense. Like, you're going to see Mahomes actually be able to drop back and have time for the play to develop. Because so many times last year, he was just under pressure right away. He had to make something out of nothing, and it just didn't really work out. But if Simmons ends up being the truth, which we've talked about all offseason long, that changes things in a big way for the Kansas City Chiefs. So I do want to hear from you guys down in the comment section below. What do you think of Josh Simmons so far at training camp? What do you think of Jawaan Taylor getting a ton of reps at right tackle the first day that he's back when the pads are on? And what do you think the role of Jalen Moore is going to be? Would you hate it if the Chiefs decided to maybe bench Jawaan Taylor if he's not playing very well? They put in Moore. Is that something you like? I definitely want to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. And I want to talk more about the left tackle position, and we'll do that right after this ad break. This video is sponsored by my great friends over at DM Injury Law. Injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation, but time is of the essence. Rely on the experienced personal injury attorneys at DM Law, Kansas City and Missouri's top injury law firm. DM Law is a full-service personal injury practice supported by a large team of investigators, case managers, medical records specialists, and more. And best of all, you don't pay unless they win. DM Law operates on a contingency fee basis, so no fees unless they win your case. And they also provide free consultations. So if you've been injured, don't wait. You can contact DM Law today for a free consultation and learn how they can help you pursue the compensation you deserve. Let them handle the fight while you focus on healing. Hurt in a car wreck? Call Mike. Remember, Mike's got this. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisement. Thanks to DM Injury Law for sponsoring this video. Huge thanks to all of the sponsors that have supported this channel all offseason long. Now, getting back into the conversation on Josh Simmons, it's really difficult to not get ahead of myself because I see the talent. The talent is there, the work ethic is there, but at the same time, it is very early on in training camp. And even though he's getting a lot of snaps with the first team offense, that doesn't necessarily mean that he is going to, perform well in the preseason games, but also win that job. It is still very early on in camp. Today was the first day they wore pads, and so as camp develops and as we see them play some preseason snaps, that's going to change some things. And maybe it doesn't end up changing anything. Maybe it just solidifies Simmons into the starting job. But I do want to see what he can do against, other quality edge rushers in the NFL. And, Mike Dana talked very highly of Simmons, saying that he's a great athlete and that he's got a good future ahead of him. And I hope that all of those things remain to be true. But also, we heard last year how good Kingsley Suamataia was, and it took about 2 weeks into the regular season to find out that he was not your guy. And I think that's a little bit of a different situation, but I'm incredibly high on Josh Simmons. I think he's going to be the starter week 1, and I think that today, the first time that we saw the 5 guys out there on the offensive line that are probably going to start. You got Simmons, you've got Suamataia at left guard, Humphrey, you've got Smith at right tackle or right guard, and then you're going to have Taylor at right tackle. I think that's probably your starting 5, but let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Am I wrong? Do you think that there's any chance that Moore beats out Simmons for the starting left tackle job? I don't really think there is, and in fact, I think with the way that the Chiefs have played Moore so far in training camp, if anybody's going to get replaced, it would probably be Jawan Taylor at right tackle. So I think that Simmons probably has that left tackle job on lock, and then, Taylor is the one that has to fight and claw to end up being the starter because, they brought in competition for him, and right now, it's Simmons' job to lose. And so that is a very good thing for the Kansas City Chiefs. If Simmons ends up being the guy that we think that he can be, the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. I'll say that right now. It's training camp. It's mid-July. If Josh Simmons ends up being a top 10 left tackle, maybe he's even better, the Chiefs will win the Super Bowl in 2025. And I really don't have, too much of a problem saying that because the Chiefs were an offensive lineman away from potentially stealing that game from the Eagles. Now, granted, they had a bunch of injuries across the board, but if Simmons is healthy and playing at a high level, you're going to see this offense do things that they have not done in years. So, Chiefs Kingdom, that is all the time I have in this video. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of Josh Simmons and how he's played so far in training camp. And also, what do you think about the battle going on at right tackle? Do you think that Taylor wins the job? Do you think that Moore wins the job? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video. And as always, go Chiefs.